Hey guys, Mitch here with the AudioDabbler YouTube channel, and I've been testing out the ARC Studio Advanced Room Correction System in my tiny little studio office, and I have to say that I really think it makes a big difference. There are some things, some latency, which I'll get into a little bit later, and there's some things you need, but overall I think it's a wonderful system. So let's get into it. Full disclaimer, IK Multimedia did send me this product to review, but they're not paying me for this review or for this video, and they have no say in the content of this video. Let's see what you get inside the box. Get a nice cutout and register your software and how to set everything up, how to calibrate. Stick that to the side because we will probably need it. Make sure there's still whatever you want. That is the microphone and USB cable. You can see the microphone, XLR, and a little holder. I will choose classic. Get it to slide in there. There we go. Alright, right here we got power indicator, the signal, and whether or not it's corrected or incorrected. This is a button. I'm assuming there's going to be a light here. If it's on, then it's correction. If it's off, then it's bypass. Good metal housing. That's nice. Really well made on both sides. The bottom does have rubber feet so it don't slide around. And then let's look at this back side here. We got the DC power in, USB, and then the outputs, which will go from XLR to the monitors. So these inputs here will input from XLR, which would be from your, interface and or mixer. So seeing these inputs here, my monitors are currently hooked up with TRS 1/4-inch cables, balanced, because I mostly use audio interfaces, which the majority of them have TRS connectors. Like my Rodecaster has TRS outputs. My Topping Professional has XLR, or has TRS outputs. My Personas, I have two Personas interfaces. Both of those have 1/4-inch. So how are you going to hook these up? You're going to need to get something like these right here. So it brings me into my next section of the video, is things you may need. Things I didn't really think about until this was on its way, and then I was like, wait, I need something like this. So you'll need a TRS to XLR to be able to plug into these input sections, because the input is going to be what your audio interface, your mixer, whatever it is that you're going to be playing through, and the output obviously is going to your speakers. And you got to make sure that your speakers, your studio monitors, do accept XLR inputs, or you might have to get another set of these, which are TRS balanced XLR cables, so this way you can go from this to your speakers. Luckily my M-Audio BX8s do have XLR inputs, and so we just got to get all that stuff wired in. So right here my microphone was a little distorted, didn't realize that, and figured I'd just speed this part up because I'm just talking about how this interface would work really well for people who have hardware synthesizers or hardware gear like MPCs, like high forces, things like that, because especially if you have the XLR to TSR cables, because then you can just plug it in and then hear a corrected room, and you don't have to use any kind of software, because obviously the MPCs and things like that don't have that correction software. So this is really good, I think, too, for people who have those types of setups, who they use, you know, outboard gear, you know, like MPCs to make their beats, even iPad, because then you could plug your interface or whatever into your setup and it would work, and you would have a corrected room with that as well. Something you didn't know you needed until you got it, and then it's like, wow, I like it. Okay, so next thing I would encourage you to do is to go ahead and get the IK Product Manager. You can do it before or after you register, but that way there's no confusion, because you will have to download the IK Product Manager in order to download the software. And so once you register, make sure you do download that software, so that way you can install the ARC system, make it a lot easier. Once the setup is complete, there's two pieces of software that it installs: ARC4 and ARC4 Analysis. The ARC4 software is what you will use to fine-tune your room once the analysis is complete, and the ARC4 Analysis is what you would use to set up your system and do the analytics of your room. It's you can do 7 or 21 points. I'd recommend doing the 21 points. It gets a more accurate representation of your room. It does take a little bit of time, 10 to 20 minutes, you know, depending on how quickly you do it. There's a couple little sections. If you got this system, you would use this MEMS mic model that I am showing on the screen right now. If you have other microphones that you're using or whatever, then just select the appropriate one. You know, click next, and here's where you set your output device, which would be the output of your speakers, and the input device would be the input that you've plugged your ARC microphone into. It is phantom power, so make sure that you enable phantom power. And then here you could do your buffer size, sample rate, and other things like that. Just make sure that you select the appropriate microphone channel that you got your microphone plugged into, and it is 48 volt phantom power. Once that is complete, you're going to get to this next screen where you're going to set up your typical listening situation. You know, just kind of judge it on how big the room is, how you sit, and that's pretty self-explanatory. And then you're going to work on positioning the ARC microphone horizontally as close to where your ear sits. So you want to kind of sit facing how you would be if you're going to be mixing, and then you can place the microphone appropriately. For this next part, please heed the warning. Playback level is super loud. Turn your volume down, hit play test, and then slowly turn it up, so that way you do not destroy your eardrums like I did. So this took me a few minutes to get right. I didn't have phantom power turned on at first, and then I had to start adjusting the levels. I had already scared myself with this super loud noise, hurt my drums, and so I was taking everything very, very slowly, but eventually I got it right. Once you get the levels working right, it will go up to the correct, and you'll see the little OK button, and once the levels are there for a certain period of time, it will check out and you can go on to the next page. So on the next screen, you get room analysis, where you want to do 7 for quick or advanced for 21. I wanted to do advanced, so I went ahead and clicked advanced. And this brings you to the position, telling you the layers, 3 layers, 7 per, so it's going to be 21 different microphone placements that you're going to do. And you will follow the on-screen guide and move the microphone. Doesn't have to be exact, doesn't have to be perfect, but it's just trying to get you around the room with taking different levels, so that way it can do the proper analysis on your room and create the profile. I'm going to speed this next part up because it does take, you know, anywhere from 5 to 15, maybe 20 minutes, depending on how quickly you move the microphone around. But just remember, it doesn't have to be approximate. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just approximate will get you in the ballpark. And I do plan on making several different iterations as I learn the system to maybe fine tune it even more. But my first first analysis was really good. So once the software is done, it will. So once the analytics are done, then you can go to the next screen, save it, whatever you want, preferably something you will know that, hey, this is my home studio office or whatever, and then you can select the appropriate type of speakers that you have. There's a whole bunch of them. I've not been in the studio worlds where I know what all of these are. Do know that there's the KRKs down there, and there's a few that I do recognize. I picked the one that was closest to my M-Audio BX8s, and then I saved the process. So now you can launch the ARC4 software and go down here at the bottom and make sure that your measurement, you select what you did measure. And if you did multiple measurements, then you would have the multiple ones. And then you can kind of see, you can select the target if you want to mess around with a different target. And you can see how each one does change the kind of the flatness, the correction of your room. And there are phases for natural and linear. And you can also select and turn off the before. You can see what it is after. And you can isolate the channels. You can see what each channel was doing. And you can do that per target, which is really helpful to really see what the ARC4 software is actually doing to your signal. And you can go in and edit the curves. So if you have some more specific things you want to do, you can edit if you want to. I'm more of a flatter, that standard boost a little high. I guess at this point, is it stored? And the last thing you want to do is, once you're satisfied with what you like, what you're hearing, then you can store, which will sync it to the ARC Studio. And at that point, you can unplug the software, unplug it from the computer. It's got power, and then it is completely standalone to listen and correct anything that you are trying to mix. Okay, so after messing around for a little while, here's the my analytics, and here's the ARC4 session. You can see I just have it selected up here at the top. You can select before and after. I got the before selected because you can see, kind of got some big spikes up here, and then that midsection is really crazy, crazy low. And then it kind of peaks, and then. But I watched some other videos, and this is not an uncommon set of things for a home studio, and so the correction definitely flattens it out quite a bit. And you can go in here and edit. So if I wanted to bring maybe some of this up to try to get that a little more but I will say that it's helped a lot in this room, the way the mixes sound, the way things just resonate. I was finding myself, when I was trying to do anything in here, I would try to overcompensate for bass, and I think that really says it, because my mid-range was lacking, so things sounded muddy, maybe, or I was trying to beef up the bass, but I was really needing to bring up all the mids and to give a more of a flatter, cleaner, clear sound. And I can tell a difference between the corrected and uncorrected quite a bit. And the highs are more crisp, and so I'm not going to reach and try to overcompensate for the highs. I'm not going to try to overcompensate for the lows, because my mids are coming through a lot better, and everything is just a lot more clean and muddy. And that's what I was finding, is the few songs that I've tried to produce in my new office have been really boomy and muddy when I take it out to like the car or whatever. It was because I was trying to hear the bass in here, and it just wasn't. It was sounding good in here, but I was having to overcompensate, and so I think that's really where this system comes into play, is being able to get your room to at least sound somewhat neutral, and to bring the lows down maybe so they're not so boomy, and bring those mids up and have everything kind of at an equal playing field, so that way the frequencies aren't competing with each other. It's really, really nice software. I will probably take and do a couple more passes with the analysis. Maybe take 2 and take 3 just to see. Maybe adjust my levels on my speakers just a little bit, just to see if there's anything. But overall, just one 21-point pass has made a world of difference. Don't be afraid to mess around with this edit software, because the great thing is as you're editing, it's taken into account on the ARC Studio here, and then when you want to store it, you can just store it, and then you ain't got to worry about it. And so that's another key thing, is you ain't got to worry about bringing up software or whatever. Anytime you turn on your speakers, turn on the correction, boom, there you go. It's going to be corrected. No overhead on your computer if you've got a slower computer, and it just works. So I've been messing around, and you really can't, from playing just keyboards with MIDI, you don't really notice the latency, but there is a slight latency. I had my son come down, he plays piano as well, and he was messing around, and he said that if I hadn't have told him there was latency, then he wouldn't have really noticed the latency. But so it got me curious as to actually how much latency. And so I switched out. I tried 2 different interfaces. I tried a topping E2 X2 OTG, and I tried the Presonus Quantum ES2. Both yielded the same results, so I don't really think it would be an interface issue. I do have my Logic settings at 32 buffer. I don't know if there's any other settings in here, maybe processing small or large, maybe adjusting some of these things might help with the latency, but I think it is a device latency. But is that really an issue? I don't know. I haven't really tracked like acoustic instruments to it and tried to listen to, but anything I play acoustic, I'm going to use headphones for, and so that's really not going to make a difference in how I track it. I'm going to record it and then mix it, and if I'm just messing around, then that's not really going to be an issue. If I'm playing electric guitar or something like that and I'm plugged straight in, or with the keyboard with MIDI, it's not noticeable that I have tested yet that I can't. It's not that noticeable. And so, but I did use ChatGTP, or actually I used Copilot. So let me show you here on the screen. Here's the corrected topping and uncorrected topping, and you can see, let me close this out. Let me zoom way in. And you can see the waveform picks up. And then the waveform over here don't pick up till about, the screen grab really don't show it, but it's about 87, 88-ish ticks, I guess is what you would, that's how Logic performs. And it's the same thing with the PreSonus. It's going to be right there, somewhere right around in there where those ticks start happening, where the audio, and it's about 88 or so, 87. And so I asked Copilot, I said, playhead position is here at 120 BPM, how many milliseconds is that? And it's a 45 on my system, how I have it set up. It's about a 45 millisecond latency between audio and the speakers. Here's how I had it set up. I just used the included mic, and I just pointed it at the speaker, and I just quarter noted out some piano notes here, just to play some long ones and then some short ones, and just repeat that, so you can kind of see a consistency. And so that's what I did, and I just recorded straight in, so that would be more true to what your ears are hearing, you know, because what's playing here and what my ears are going to hear from the speakers, it's going to be about a 45. So there is a latency when you get like really down into it, but it's 45 milliseconds. I guess it's for you to decide, because I'm here to test this out, and so this is really for you to decide if 45 seconds is really that big a deal, or are you going to be tracking a lot on headphone or with like acoustic instruments or vocals. You're not going to be tracking vocals with this because you want to isolate the microphone as much as possible. So you're going to put headphones in, so you're going to get latency free. And so while there is a 45 millisecond latency, me personally, I don't see as that an issue. Other people may see it as an issue, depending on the way they work. So that's for you to decide. Okay, so one last test with the latency issue. I adjusted my EQ band and I turned it over to natural, because I do remember watching a video and that linear had a more noticeable delay than the natural setting, and so I did that. Here's the corrected, and you can see it's at like 9 ticks versus like 7 ticks. And if I solo these two, oh, I need to turn the output to, ooh, that hurt. Can't hear a difference. But with, say, so the ones that were corrected and were on linear have a 45 millisecond delay, and the ones that are on the linear have no discernible delay, because these two here should be playing and there's not even a hint. Second part of the latency, I forgot that I had saw where the natural setting here was a lot quicker than the linear. The linear does some extra things as far as the phase goes, and so it does add a good amount of latency, like 35 to 40 seconds of latency, at least on my system, over doing the natural phase. And so there you go. All right. So I think I've covered everything I possibly can think of. I've tested the latency, showed you how to set it up, walked through the software. There's really not much more I can do as far as to show you. You know, recording a room is very, very subjective. Microphones and speakers and what you're listening to it on, what I'm listening to it on is all very subjective, which is why I think these are really, really key, because it kind of levels everything out. It's not an EQ, it's just more of a frequency response that your speakers in your room do as you're mixing. And so I would just suggest that just get to know them, get to know it with your speakers now in your room. Listen to music that you like, watch some movies, TV, you know, whatever it is, to just play different sounds so you can hear a difference and get your ears accustomed to this, to your current room, and that will help a lot. Just build that relationship. It'll help. I want to thank IK Multimedia for sending this out, allow me to test this. It's really going to up my game as far as mixing, I think, and give me more motivation to just create more, because I'll be able to hear a truer sound and not get frustrated when I take my mix out to the car and it's very muddy, and you know, things just don't sound right. You know, doesn't sound mixed, even though it sounds good in here. Take it out there, it doesn't. This should give me a better playing field as far as that goes. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I will talk to you guys later.